Good evening, everybody. Hello, my name is Stephen Hummel. I'm here at McDonald Observatory, part of the University of Texas at Austin. Welcome to our sort of virtual town hall event where we're going to discuss the Greater Big Bend International Dark Sky Reserve. And again, thank you for joining us. I am here from McDonald Observatory. My title here is Dark Sky Specialist. I'm also joined by Bill Wren here at McDonald Observatory, he's a Dark Skies Initiative Coordinator, as well as Amber Harrison from Big Bend Ranch State Park, interpretive ranger down at the park. It's going to go over a little bit about the plan for our show for you tonight. We're going to go over a bit about the problem of light pollution in general, and we're going to go over the solutions, essentially, to the problems of light pollution, which we call night sky friendly lighting. And then we're going to go into the Dark Sky Reserve. We are currently working on applying to the International Dark Sky Association to create this Greater Big Bend International Dark Sky Reserve. So we're going to talk about what that is, what it means, and how it affects you, in particular residents of far West Texas. And then we're going to take some questions. If you have any questions as we're going along, there is a moderator in the chat helping us out. He can answer your questions, and we will also take some of the questions you submit at the end as well and address them. But I am now going to turn it over to Amber Harrison from Big Bend Ranch State Park to introduce us to the problem of light pollution.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Like I said, like Stephen said, I'm Amber. I'm a interpretive ranger at Big Bend Ranch. Big Bend Ranch State Park was designated as an international dark sky park in 2016, which is kind of why it's important that we're here representing the park. But I'm kind of just going to start by giving you a little overview of what the actual problem is and talk about light pollution and what it is. Most simply put, light pollution is excessive and or misdirected artificial light. So all of those lights that we use to light our properties and stay up late at night and be safe after the sun goes down is artificial light. And it can keep us safe, but it also creates some problems. The major components of light pollution that we're going to discuss tonight are glare, light trespass, and ultimately one of the resulting effects is sky glow. So if you look over at your image on the screen there, it shows kind of what the useful light is. So that's going to be the light that shines directly underneath the light source. You can see that if the bulb is not shielded or directed directly down on the area that you want to light, you can see that it creates glare. It creates what we call light trespass. That's going to be the light going into other people's windows or onto other people's properties. And then light that's reflected upward. So that light's reflected up into the atmosphere, especially when it's cloudy or if you have a lot of particulates in the atmosphere. That then is directed back down and it scatters out throughout the atmosphere, and it creates a glow. So you can see on that image where the good light is, where you want to be lit. You can see where that person is. You can see that person can see the light source, so that's glare. There's a zone of where glare is most prominent, kind of that middle shaded area, and then that light trespass, which goes all the way out, well beyond that area where it's supposed to be lit. So next slide, please. So we're going to look at a couple of examples. You can see there we've all experienced, I think Stephen said it earlier, that experience of passing a vehicle with really bright lights. So that impacts your vision. It's really hard on your eyes. It's physically discomforting. It creates temporary blindness. It also creates harsh shadows. It makes your environment actually a little less safe because it limits your visibility of obstacles. It creates harsh shadows where your obstacles can be obscured, but also things that you need to be aware of can be hidden in the shadows. So all in all, that glare is physically discomforting, and it makes your environment less safe. So if you look at the before image, on what would be my left-hand side of the screen, you can see that those lights are very bright. They're not really doing a very good job of lighting the thing that they're supposed to be lighting, which is the ground surface underneath. You can look at that, even just looking at the image, you can feel kind of that visual discomfort and how it kind of temporarily blinds you. So it makes it less safe. If you look at the after, where the light is shielded or directed down, you can see that you can still sort of see that light source, but it doesn't hurt your eyes nearly as bad. It doesn't give you that blinding sensation. And that surface underneath, the ground surface, which is actually the whole point of the light, is very well lit, and you can see a lot better. The second image, I think, is the most striking, where that glare really limits everything that you can see in your environment. You can't really see the sidewalk very well. But most importantly, when you cover up that glare, you can see that there's actually a person standing in the gate. If you look real close, you can see it now in the top version, but that's definitely a safety issue. So glare, the exposed bulb, really makes your environment less safe. A lot of people misconstrue that as being safer, but this image really shows that it doesn't make you that much safer. So next slide. This is an example of trespass, and this is where you get a combination. You can see the bare bulb it creates a lot of glare, but now what happens is that light is trespassing onto somebody else's property. So it's probably diminishing their quality of life. It's introducing a light that maybe they don't want. So it's exactly what it sounds like. It's trespass. And it's, again, remembering that you have a light for a reason. It's showing, especially in this image, I think it does a really good job of showing that light is not going where it's intended. It's going everywhere but where it's intended. And light trespass it is a big problem between neighbors frequently. So it's important to watch that. Next slide, please. And then sky glow is kind of the result of all of that excessive light being reflected back up into the atmosphere. The biggest thing that this does is that it really limits our ability to see the night sky, the natural light in the night sky. So stars and planets, things like the Milky Way, become impossible to see, especially in really densely populated areas. So that's especially important to our human heritage. So next slide. So this is a satellite image that was published in 2014. It does a really good job of showing sort of the net consequences of all of this excessive lighting, and effectively shows us the severity of light pollution. And I'll note that this was 2014. That was a while ago. So it stands to reason that the situation's probably even worse now. So this image shows sort of the intensity of the sky glow, basically that net consequence of all of that excessive light bouncing around everywhere. It was reported, again, along with this imagery in 2014, that approximately like 80% of the United States population, or I'm sorry, the world population, can no longer see the Milky Way from their place of residence or where they live. That's really, really important. This results in a lot of different negative consequences. For the first really important one, I think, is that it creates a loss of culture. So humans are universally tied to the night sky. If you think back to our human heritage, the entire time humans have been alive, we've relied on navigating via the stars, on knowing where we are on the planet because of our ability to see a clear night sky. Think about our cultural heritage and all of the stories and all of the cultures that have a close connection to the night sky. So losing all of that if we can't go outside and see these phenomena, then we're not going to be able to share that heritage and those cultural stories through generations. It also lessens our ability to make on the ground scientific and just observations of the night sky. So it impacts our ability to do astronomy, both for pleasure, but also for scientific purposes. So that's definitely a very negative thing. But exposure to all of this artificial light, both in terms of the duration that we're exposed to and also the quality of light that we're exposed to, can have some really negative consequences on our biological systems, and that being both in plants and animals, and really all living organisms. It impacts the way that we regulate hormones, specifically like melatonin, which guides our circadian rhythms. Those are the rhythms that tell us when to eat, when to sleep, when to produce. And this is not just humans, it's in all living organisms. So that creates a major imbalance and really negatively impacts those cycles that are associated with our survival behaviors, when to sleep, when to eat, when to hunt, when to reproduce and migrate. So it's really, we're learning that it's really having negative health consequences on humans. It's been linked in some studies to cancers and obesity and other diseases. In the natural world, it's led to, a reduction in biodiversity. We have, migrating birds and insects and bat populations that are being disrupted by artificial light, which ultimately reduces the biological diversity and health of the natural environment. So that's the net consequence. Go ahead.
Thank you, Amber. So in case you were getting a bit depressed about hearing all the negative consequences of light pollution, I have some good news. There is an easy win-win solution that provides more light where you need it and keeps it out of the night sky. And if you remember just one slide from this presentation this evening, it probably should be this one, at least in my opinion, because basically everything you need to know to solve the problem of light pollution is represented right here in this graph. Shielding is the first step. What that means is covering the light source such that none of the light is emitting goes up into the night sky. And it all is focused down onto the ground where the things that you're trying to see actually are. So this eliminates glare. This eliminates light trespass when it's done properly. And it also ends up saving you some money because you're paying money for that light, essentially, in the form of electricity, energy. So if you're allowing the light to go into the night sky, that's effectively wasted money. So you can reclaim that cost by just putting the light where you actually need it, rather than allowing it to go into the night sky directly. The next step is color temperature. This is one a lot of people, it's a little less intuitive, but the idea is use a sort of amber or sort of yellow toned light, or maybe even as far as red in some cases. And you want to avoid harsh blue or white lights, kind of those harsher colors. The reason for that is that the more blue light there is, the more it scatters in the atmosphere and contributes to sky glow, even if it is aimed down. So let me repeat that. Blue wavelengths of light scatter more and cause sky glow. So it's not just shielding is the first step, but color temperature also matters too, because if you use a very harsh blue light, it's still going to be reflecting off of everything, even if it is aimed down. Also, color temperature is what's really relevant to our circadian rhythm and all of those health effects Amber was just talking about. Our eyes are most sensitive to kind of blue light at night, and that's what triggers blue light suppresses the generation of melatonin, which is the hormone it's not quite a hormone, but it's like a hormone that makes you sleepy. So that's why you may have heard that if you stare at screens for a long time before going to bed, you'll have trouble sleeping. That's mostly because of the blue light content. So we don't want to flood our neighborhoods with blue light, and whether you like it or not, you're going to have a hard time sleeping at night. And that also applies to animals and even plants too. So, but by using a more yellow or amber color, we avoid that effect. It's much less dramatic, and so it's just a lot better. Also, it's a lot less harsh on the eyes at night, and it doesn't create as much glare. The more blue light there is, also the more the light reflects internally inside of your eye, contributing to glare or temporary blindness from a bright light source. The next step is intensity. This one is fairly straightforward. Only use as much light as you think you need for the task at hand. And usually that's a lot less than most people would assume. A lot of people expect or just kind of assume that more light equals safer. But as we saw, very intense lights can actually create unsafe situations because they create harsh shadows where objects can hide. Whereas using a softer light and putting it where you actually need, with even illumination, it increases visibility and decreases glare and other harmful effects. So, and the last step is timing. Simply put, if you aren't using a light, turn it off if it's not doing anything, or put it on a timer to turn off after a certain time of night. Maybe you don't need that porch light on all night long. Maybe you probably are going to use it for the first part of the night or in the morning. That also applies to things like decorative lights, or landscaping lights, or business signs after a business is closed. All of these things could be turned off with no ill effect, and that ends up saving you money as well. So just to go over those benefits again, because there's a lot, right? Again, we call this the win-win solution for a reason. Using better lights saves you money. It's better for your health. It's better for safety. It's better for the environment, and it's better for the night sky. So this really is a win-win solution. We don't have to really sacrifice anything by adopting these lighting strategies. And I'm going to give a few examples of these principles in action. So here is the Hotel Olympia here in Fort Davis, and some of you may be familiar with it. They had these very bright lights, light color, that were shielded, right? They did actually have a cone in there, but the bulb extended a little bit too far below the shield. Thus, it wasn't effective. And so you can see there's a lot of glare. And also look at the windows of the guest rooms there. A lot of the light that it's emitting is actually just going into the guest rooms and keeping them up at night. And even some of the ground staff would report that they would get up in the morning and walk along here and find some of the bulbs unscrewed and on the ground because a guest was so frustrated, they just went out and unscrewed it themselves. But we supplied them with some better bulbs, didn't change the fixtures, just the bulbs. They're smaller, so they are recessed up into the shield. And you can see there's a lot less glare. And all the light is going down onto the ground where you need it. And it's a more pleasing kind of amber color, which is what you want at night. So again, just to reiterate the concept, fully shielded, meaning none of the light is going above the source. So it's not just a matter of having a shield, but the source of the light has to be up within the shield, and that's what we call fully shielded or full cutoff. Here's another example of the Balmoral Community Center. They did have some kind of amber lights on the front, but the ones on the side were not shielded or the correct color. So we supplied them with some new fixtures on the front to aim the light down, use that kind of amber or soft white color. We supplied the front, and then actually Balmoral supplied the ones on the side after seeing the great effect, the great benefit from having the ones on the front. So it was a good demonstration. We also McDonald Observatory recognizes various locations in the area that adopt our better lighting practices. And if you are interested in that and participating, you can learn more about that on our website, mcdonaldobservatory.org. But this is a recognized location. This is the Jeff Davis County Courthouse. Actually, it's across the street. It's the annex building. And you can see, again, they have an amber color here, and it is full cutoff, aimed down. The pathway is evenly illuminated. The part where you would actually walk, you can still see everything, but it's not going to affect the night sky. It's not going to affect health or safety. Here's another example of a recognized location in Alpine. This is the Printco building. You can see, again, fully shielded, lights aimed down. Here's yet another example. I like to provide plenty of examples for the Big Ben Stargazer, an Airbnb in Terlingua. And they also made sure that all of their lights were under an awning so that even the light reflected up wouldn't go into the sky, which is obviously especially great in a location where you're trying to stargaze. Here's another example just to show you the many different approaches you can take, but there's a lot of flexibility here. This is Cactus Liquors in Marfa. It wasn't until I said Cactus Liquors outside a little early, out loud earlier today that I realized that name is a pun. Cactus Liquors, get it? Anyway, but they have LED rope lights above this awning here, but they recessed them into the support for the awning so that you can't actually directly see the rope lights when you're walking up, and they just allow it to be reflected back down by the reflective material of that awning. And when the location closes at night, they switch to red. So that's kind of just cool. I think it looks neat, but also can tell you from the street that, okay, the location is closed. But it still provides enough light to kind of see around and you don't trip on anything. And it also won't attract insects. Insects are attracted to kind of blue light, especially just another reason to avoid blue light. And obviously, if you have all plants around, you don't want to be attracting a lot of insects, to, the potential pests to those plants, or away from the plants into the light, as it may be. So obviously, red lights aren't going to work for every situation. But if you have to have a light on at night that isn't all night, that isn't going to be used very much, red is a potential solution. Great for stargazing too, because it won't destroy your night vision. But also, night sky friendly lighting designs can scale up very well. This isn't just about small residences or small businesses. Here is a large oil and gas facility near Balmoral. It's a very large facility, lots of expensive and potentially dangerous equipment that they want to illuminate. But they too use night sky friendly lighting because it's better for worker safety. And it saves them money because they aren't using more energy to illuminate things that they don't need to. But by using this kind of amber light, kind of soft light, aiming them all down, they eliminate glare and they reduce the potential for workplace accidents. So again, this isn't just about lighting in rural areas or lighting near an observatory. Night sky friendly lighting designs apply everywhere, even in the heart of a major city, even in industrial facilities where there's a high potential of danger. There is no downside. It's just a win-win solution. Saves you money, it's safer, it's better for the environment. Again, there's no downside. So unfortunately, when you go to shop for lighting, that isn't always obvious, right? Lighting manufacturers don't always make it easy for you sometimes. So here is the information on how to find good lighting, either online or in a hardware store. So when you're looking or shopping for a bulb, what you want to look for first is the color temperature of that bulb. And you can see here on the right side here that 2700K is sort of this kind of almost incandescent, sort of warm color, as most people would call it. And we want this or below to avoid the effects of scattering off the sky and objects and the effects of glare. So using a color temperature of 2700K or below is good. Also look for a lower intensity, meaning that's going to kind of depend on the application, but generally speaking, it's very rare that you'll need more than 1,000 lumens for a bulb outside at night. In most cases, that's again, it will sort of depend on what you're trying to illuminate. You can get by with as little as 50 or 100 lumens. That's actually I use at my house. If you're in a completely dark environment to start with, you don't really need all that much light to see well. You can get by with very little. That has the benefit of lower energy use. And also, if you're not sure how it's going to work for you, or maybe you may use it in different conditions, you may consider shopping for a dimmable bulb. Now, notice I didn't say avoid LEDs. I didn't say avoid incandescents or whatever. It's not so much the kind of light that matters for being night sky friendly. It's really about the color and intensity. Those are the traits that matter, and different bulbs do a better or worse job at that. But a lot of people it may tell you to avoid all LEDs because they cause these problems. Originally, that may have been true, but modern LEDs can be totally night sky compliant. In fact, most of the ones that we recommend installing now are LEDs. But they are also very energy efficient. They use less energy, so that's another reason to use it. And if you are confused on that, or like, how do I find this information? Well, every light bulb you see in our hardware store, or at least almost all of them, will have a little lighting facts box on the back of it. It's a tongue twister. And it'll tell you the lumens, how bright it is, and it'll tell you the color temperature, in Kelvin. Again, you want 2700K or below. You can stretch that to about 3000K if you can't find something, but with no more than that. And most bulbs you get in a hardware store will be kind of in this range in lumens. Now, in finding good fixtures, this sometimes can be a little trickier, but if you're looking online, the terms to search for are terms like dark or night sky friendly, terms like full cutoff or fully shielded, or you can search IDA seal of approval. It's the International Dark Sky Association, and they approve certain fixtures and certain bulb fixture combinations as night sky friendly. And so they have a process of doing that, and you can find that list at darksky.org if you're unsure. But there are options out there that don't have the seal of approval but are still good. They just haven't gone through the process yet. But you want to check to make sure that the bulb that you're using isn't too big for the fixture and that it won't extend below the fixture too much. And you want to also be sure that no light is emitted above the fixture. I've seen sort of wall sconces that have most of the light going down, and then they have little stylized cutouts that project the other half of the light into the sky. And it's like, boy, that would be really great if it didn't just, ruin the concept by directing some of it into the sky. So, and sometimes it's not obvious. But if you doubt it, you can go to darksky.org and check and see a list of approved ones. And generally, they're all pretty good. But you can also find your own or make your own you can use the diagram there. This is also available on our website. Again, the idea is all the light should be going down below the light fixture. All right, I'm now going to turn it over to Bill to talk a little bit about not just a little bit, a fair bit, about the dark sky reserve we're working on.
All right. Thank you, Stephen and Amber. I'm Bill Wren, Special Assistant to the Superintendent at McDonald Observatory, and it's my pleasure to tell you about a proposed international dark sky reserve for the greater Big Bend area. The IDA recognizes a variety of locations as dark sky places. As Amber mentioned, the Big Bend Ranch State Park is an international dark sky park, as is the Big Bend National Park. There are dark sky communities. I think the first one in Texas was Dripping Springs. Wimberley Valley is a dark sky community. There are dark sky sanctuaries. I understand that I don't think I'm jumping the gun to tell people that Black Gap Wildlife Management Area has been designated. But the observatory is kind of spearheading the effort to put in an application. Next slide, please. To establish, if approved, what will be the world's largest international dark sky reserve. Well, Black Gap, by the way, is just to the east or to the right of the Big Bend National Park. Hopefully, you all recognize the area here. It includes the Tri-County area, a small slice of southern Reeves County, actually Balmorhea State Park and the Sandia Springs Wetlands Project wanted to be part of the reserve, so we extended up into the southern Reeves, and actually we extended it far enough to include the oil and gas facility that Stephen showed an image of earlier. That big cryo plant has very good night sky friendly lighting, and we think it's pretty cool that we've got a major oil and gas industrial facility within International Dark Sky Reserve, proposed International Dark Sky Reserve. But the dark green areas, the IDA distinguishes between two regions within a reserve. There's the core, where the lighting restrictions are very strict, if you will, very stringent. In this case, this area is about 15,000 square miles. It's so large. Oh, and I failed to mention that it also includes 3 protected areas south of the river in northern Mexico. From left to right, they are Santa Elena, Ocampo, and Del Carmen, which will add greatly to the size of the reserve. But they'll be part of the peripheral area where the lighting restrictions are less stringent, but yet still controlled. And in the process, this area was so large that the IDA gave us permission to establish a northern core, which will consist of the Nature Conservancy's Davis Mountain Preserve and the McDonald Observatory campus. And then the southern core is the Big Bend National Park, Big Bend Ranch State Park, which also now includes the Chinati Mountains State Natural Area to the west. So some of the darkest areas left in the country will be encompassed within this reserve. And much of what we have spent the last year and a half or more now, I guess since COVID set in, is working with these 4 counties, and I guess it's about 5 municipalities to revise their outdoor lighting ordinances. And I'd like to give you a little bit of background about that. Next slide, please. There have been lighting ordinances in place in West Texas for decades. Now, ordinances in Texas are kind of like unicorns. They're really not supposed to exist. Counties ordinarily don't have the authority. They can collect taxes and maintain roads, but they typically don't pass laws. In 1987, a bill was signed that gave these 7 counties explicit permission to enact outdoor lighting ordinances designed to protect the dark night skies for ongoing astronomical research at McDonald Observatory by name in the statute. Over the decades, 6 out of the 7 counties did so. Reeves County was the lone holdout because they didn't want to scare away oil and gas. They were very upfront about that. But as you've seen, oil and gas can also benefit from night sky friendly lighting practices. But in 2011, former Governor Perry signed a bill that changed the language from these counties may adopt to these counties shall adopt. That brought Reeves County on board, and all of the incorporated areas, all the cities within the 7-county region were included as well. So that 7-county area shaded in blue there is right at 28,000 square miles. As far as I know, it's the largest piece of ground on the planet whose skies overhead are protected by law. Next slide, please. So here are the criteria that we've been focusing on to put together an application to submit to the International Dark Sky Association to establish the Greater Big Bend International Dark Sky Reserve. We have to be able to demonstrate broad-based community support. It can't just be, McDonald Observatory's idea. Everybody needs to be behind it. So we've been conducting a lot of town hall events, very similar to what we're doing now, with a variety of different groups, basically anybody who's willing to listen. We're also soliciting letters of support from a variety of both public and private landholders and businesses and organizations. And as Stephen mentioned, the Observatory has established a recognition program. I know that Texan by Nature also has a recognition program for night sky friendly lighting. If you're not familiar with Texan by Nature, look it up online. It's a conservation group that was founded by former First Lady Laura Bush, back in 2011. I've been documenting sky quality. I'll talk about that in a little more detail, inventorying outdoor lighting. And then the lighting management plan is an overarching document for the entire reserve. And we've been able to revise the language in the county and city ordinances within the reserve, as I mentioned, to meet IDA criteria, basically fully shielded, 2,700 degree Kelvin color temperature or below. And then a lumens per acre cap, which goes right along with what Stephen was saying with regard to intensity, how much light you need for the job at hand, and then the adaptive controls, light switches, half-night photo cells, timers, and motion sensors, that kind of thing. And then we also have to demonstrate that we're not going to just take a snapshot and leave all the existing lighting the way it is and only focus on new lighting that's installed in the area. Each of these county ordinances were revised, and I should list them by right. Jeff Davis, Brewster, Presidio counties, Reeves County, the cities of Balmorhea, Presidio, Alpine, Marfa, and Valentine have all adopted these provisions, updated their lighting ordinances, more accurately reflects current lighting technologies like LEDs and current lighting practices. And it brings it in line with the IDA criteria. So again, we have to demonstrate we're not just going to leave things the way they are and focus on new lighting that's installed, but there is in these ordinances, the updated ordinances, there is a sunset clause that requires all outdoor lighting to be brought into compliance within 5 years' time. And the observatory has funds privately donated that are earmarked for outdoor lighting control so we can help offset the cost. I know the Big Bend Conservation Alliance has done a fundraiser to help with this. Not exactly sure how they're going to go about spending it, but there will be monies available to help offset the cost to the end users to bring their lighting into compliance within this 5-year window. Next slide, please. So again, the sky quality measurements, this has been an ongoing program for the past, more than 2 years, really, but we've been gathering data on sky quality at least since 2015. There's a variety of different measures. The simplest one, the one we've been able to recruit some volunteers to help us with, Amber being one of them, thank you very much, and Stephen for that matter. It's just a little handheld sky quality meter that you point at the sky and push a button, and it gives you a reading of how dark the background sky is. And the numbers you see scattered around the reserve on that map indicate the locations that we go back to on a seasonal basis, basically every 3 months, although sometimes more often, and gather data over an extended period of time so we can demonstrate if there are any trends, whether the sky is getting brighter or darker. We need to have a long baseline of data to submit with the application. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we are also conducting lighting inventories. Thanks to American Electric Power, AEP, and Rio Grande Electric, who have provided us lists or audits, inventories of all of the public lighting that's been installed. That is what's required for the peripheral area around the cores within the reserve. And this photograph shows what has become the standard roadway light fixture. In fact, it's statewide. TxDOT has adopted this standard. It's a flat lens Cobra head with the light source recessed, and it's high pressure sodium, by the way. So the color temperature is below, it's about 2200 degree Kelvin. It's well below the 2700 upper limit. So it's that nice gold looking light that you'll see around if you look for it. This is the predominant fixture. It's what we are finding that the bulk of the outdoor lighting fixtures, public outdoor lighting fixtures within the reserve, according to the utilities, the inventories they provided, are this type of fixture. And as older fixtures are replaced, they are replaced with this style of fixture. This is mostly street lighting. We're talking about public lighting. In fact, I believe the IDA has been able to demonstrate that when you are approaching a city, Amber had that great picture of the sky glow over an urban area just over the hill. About 1/3 of the sky glow over a given municipal area is public street lighting. So it does make a very big difference, the type of lighting that's used. Next, please. So again, we revisited the existing ordinances, the prior ordinances, I should say. They have been changed now, as I mentioned, and much of that language dated back to the 1970s. In order to determine how bright light was, whether or not it needed to be shielded because it was so bright, they used watts to measure how bright the light source was, which, back in the 1970s probably made pretty good sense. But today, the LED has revolutionized the way we light indoors and outdoors. And it just doesn't work anymore. Wattage doesn't work as a measure of how bright it is. Many of the ordinances identified a 100 or a 150 watt light bulb as a light source that was bright enough that it needed to be fully shielded. And several of them said that a 70 watt light source could be partially shielded. Well, with an LED, a 70 watt LED is about almost three times brighter than a 150 watt incandescent bulb. So we got rid of the reference to wattage and are now using lumens, which is an absolute measure of how bright the light source is to determine whether or not it needs to be fully shielded. So that was one thing that we cleared up in the older language from the existing lighting ordinances. Next, please. There was also a provision that allowed, in many of the ordinances, not all, but in many of them, was a provision that allowed for pole-mounted floodlights, adjustable floodlights, to be aimed up as much as 20 degrees from vertical, not pointing straight down, which would make them a fully shielded fixture and compliant, but aimed up at 20 degrees, which is in direct contradiction to the requirement that a fixture be fully shielded. So we had contradictory language in many of the ordinances that needed to be rectified as well. Next, please. And just to show you an example of why this was important, now we're not trying to pick on anybody in particular, but this is a new LED floodlight outside a laundromat in Alpine. There are actually two of them either side of the sign, which you'll see in a second from a photo I took across the street. You might also notice, back up just a second. You might also notice the light fixtures illuminating the donut sign. Now that's light from above shining down onto the sign. That's actually good lighting. So you'll notice that the LED floodlight next to the laundromat sign is aimed up at about 20 degrees. And I want to show you why it is that aiming a floodlight up 20 degrees is not night sky friendly. Now, next slide, please. So standing at the front door of the laundromat underneath those light fixtures, this is looking across the street and across 5th Street in Alpine toward the Big Ben telephone parking lot. You can see the power lines over the highway are lit quite well. The power pole is lit up. So it indicates that even aimed up at 20-degree angle, light is shining above the horizon and into the sky, lighting up the power lines, lighting up the tree across the highway, lighting up the building at the far end of the parking lot. And standing at the far end of the parking lot, looking back, next slide, please. I took this photo that looks back at the laundromat, and you can see those two 20-degree floodlights either side of the sign, and the glare, which has been emphasized rightfully so before in this presentation, is debilitating. I mean, there are actually people that were milling around outside the laundromat on the sidewalk when I took this photo, and the glare prevents them from being seen. So glare impairs visibility. So by aiming those, they just simply need to be adjusted to point straight down. They should probably also be replaced and be much less bright. The lumen output is way too high for the application at hand, which is to light the entrance to this laundromat. Next, please. So the provisions in all of the revised outdoor lighting ordinances ask that adjustable floodlights be aimed to point straight down or be shielded in such a way that there is no light. They are a fully shielded fixture. There's no light that is shining above the horizon. In fact, the Reeves County lighting ordinance requires that all adjustable floodlights be aimed straight down, as shown here, within 6 months of the adoption of that ordinance. Reeves County, we're talking major oil and gas activity, so there's probably a few tens of thousands of adjustable floodlights in the oil field that we will be asking to be aimed straight down, as long as it doesn't jeopardize safety. We certainly don't want to do that. Safety first. Next, please. And a lot of people will think, well, you aim a floodlight straight down, you're not going to get good coverage on the ground. It's really just not true. You get basically about 4 times the mounting height of coverage underneath the fixture. So this is actually on top of a Family Dollar store, I think in Junction, Texas. I took this photo, but for example, if you had a pole-mounted floodlight on a telephone pole, say a 25-foot high telephone pole aimed straight down, you would have very good, useful illumination within a 100-foot radius, 4 times the mounting height around that pole. Beyond that 20-foot radius, that 100-foot radius, you should not be able to look at the light fixture and see the bare bulb any longer. So the glare would be reduced from outside that area. Next, please. We've spoken about color temperature. I just thought I'd throw this diagram in to reiterate and just basically explain why. 2,700 degrees, you can see just below 3,000 there. It is the color of an incandescent bulb. If you have a halogen bulb, that is a 2,700 degree Kelvin light. It's a warm white color. It's easier on the eye at night. And you'll notice as you go from the lower color temperatures to the higher color temperatures, basically you're increasing the amount of blue light in the spectral content of these light sources. So, the lighting industry is a little bit confused in that they call the high color temperature cool and the low color temperature warm. So I'm not sure what that's about. But anyway, you get the idea. The cool white light has a lot more blue in it. And Stephen and Amber have also already spoken very eloquently to the detrimental effects of blue light at night. It impairs your visibility, it creates glare, disrupts your circadian rhythm, and so on. So 2,700 degrees Kelvin is the order of the day. Next, please. And again, this is already, I'm just reiterating here, most of this. The benefits, it is very much a win-win situation. There really aren't any downsides to using night sky friendly lighting. It's more cost efficient. It reduces glare, which improves visibility, safety, security at night. It's better for your health, for the environment, all living creatures. Too much artificial light at night is just not good for us. And we've spoken to science and culture, and science, of course, is the main reason Steve and I are here to protect the skies for McDonald Observatory to continue to do cutting edge astronomical research. But tourism is another issue that is another factor that really it factors into why this night sky reserve has gotten as much support as it has. Next slide, please. For example, prior to, well, this is 2019, prior to the COVID shutdown, McDonald Observatory Visitor Center was hosting right at 100,000 visitors per year to come out 3 nights a week for evening star parties to take in the dark night skies of West Texas. I've heard people say that, well, people will come out to West Texas and discover the night skies. Well, here were 100,000 people in 2019 who made reservations months in advance for the express purpose of coming out to experience the night sky. They didn't just kind of stumble across it. So it is, in fact, a tourist draw all over the region. You don't have to be at McDonald Observatory to take in the night sky, but if you want to look through a telescope, hopefully once restrictions are lifted, we can get back to that this fall. Next slide, please. And the National Park Service is really, well, so is Texas Parks and Wildlife, for that matter, has adopted the night sky as one of their pillars for conservation. In fact, you can see the poster on the right. The slogan at the top is "Half the park is after dark." All right. Next slide, please. The Big Bend National Park has reported that their nighttime astronomy related programs consistently see high attendance. In fact, nationwide, the National Park Service has said that they see 10 times the attendance at their nighttime programs as they do in their daytime programs. Visitations increased. The amount of money pumped into the surrounding economies for the Big Bend National Park was at $46.6 million in 2019. And in a decades-long survey across the Park Service, 2/3 of the visitors rated experiencing the dark night skies as very or extremely important to their visit to the park. So it is we are planting a flag in the middle of West Texas and with this dark sky reserve to identify it as a night sky destination for people. It pumps a lot of money into the economy. Next slide, please. And this is, you can find this online at the National Park Service website. They have a wonderful drop-down menu where you can pick any of the 100 or so national parks nationwide, and they've broken out all the different economic impacts that the particular park has on its surrounding community. You can look at Park Service wide nationally, or you can pick out individual parks. This is from Big Bend National Park. Again, in 2019, they estimate about $46.6 million pumped into the gateway community economies. And you can see that number is increasing. And Bob Krumenecker, superintendent at the Big Bend National Park, has told me that they are currently, even in the middle of this COVID crisis, they are seeing 20% above, they are at 20% above the rate of visitation that they were in 2019. So it's just increasing. So it is beneficial to the economy, to the region as well. So on that note, I'm pretty sure that's my last slide. Stephen?
Yeah, thank you so much, Bill. At this time, if anybody has any questions for us, this is a good time to ask them. And if you are watching this recorded later on, you can also submit questions to myself and Bill at mcdonaldobservatory.org. Under Dark Skies, you can find a question form specifically for this topic. But yeah, if we have any questions for us, we'll go ahead and address them. How do you find out the requirements in these counties? In the 7 counties, most of the counties and municipalities around us, those ordinances, the language is available on our website under Dark Skies Resources. There are a few missing, I believe, but most of them are on there. Bill, if you had anything to add.
Only that they're slow to get fully signed copies to us. I mean, every county commissioner and every city council person typically will have to put their signature to it. So it's taken us a little while since they actually adopted the revised language to get the fully signed versions of the ordinance that are available for us to post, as Stephen said, on our Night Sky resources page.
Yeah, and I will add that basically, if you can read through that for sure, and there's specific language in there. But if you want the easy answer of what does it say, this is what you really have to do in a nutshell. Shield the lights, use 2700K or below, and don't you overlight your area. I think you're set, and they shouldn't have anything to worry about. All right, any other questions? How would I go about having my town install lights like this? Bill, you want to take that?
Well, sure. If you're talking about a municipality, it's up to the city to request this type of lighting from the utility that provides their public lighting for them. There are also, again, that full cutoff flat lens Cobra head is the standard that's being used for street lighting in the area. But there are also many pole mounted adjustable floodlights that people will ask for and pay for from the local utility, that if that customer were to call the local utility and ask them to please aim that light fixture down to be in compliance with the local ordinance, the utility should respond and get somebody up in a bucket truck and aim that light down, no charge. So if you're talking about public lighting in a municipal area, then talk to the city. The people that pay the bill can then request that of the utility that provides the fixtures.
Yeah, any other questions? Barry Allen asks if, Bill, you are scheduled to present a similar presentation to various astronomical societies in the near future.
By invitation only. Let me know when, drop a hat and I'll be there to talk. Let me know when and where. I'd love to.
All right. Bill, I know a lot of people ask or are concerned about how lighting ordinances are enforced in the area. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. First off, we're not the lighting police. We're not trying to hit anybody over the head with lighting ordinances. In fact, we view lighting ordinances as vehicles for education and awareness. We believe that the upside to night sky friendly lighting, the multifaceted sides to night sky friendly lighting, are convincing enough that once people see it, and it is a very visual topic, people can read about it and you can talk about it, but it's often not until you actually see it in use, whether photographically or better in person, that it clicks and people will choose to use night sky friendly lighting of their own accord without any enforcement necessary. It will be their go-to lighting practice of choice. So, it's very, very, so find an example of good lighting in your community. That's one of the things that these recognition programs are so valuable for. If you can point somebody, well, go look at that big cryo facility north of Balmorhea, or go look at the Printco building in Alpine. And that's the kind of lighting that we're in favor of. We're not anti-light. We're in favor of good lighting. You can show people what it looks like. Usually they're going to go, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. And that will be their lighting of choice. Well, but it's to answer your question more directly, it's certainly up to the governing body, whether it be county commissioners court. Of course, the only code enforcement in the county really is the sheriff, and they have better things to do with their time than chase light fixtures around the countryside. And in the city, some of the cities, depending, have code enforcement but it's certainly up to the governing bodies to do any kind of enforcement. But that's generally speaking, we have been very successful in showing people what good lighting looks like, and no need for enforcement.
Yeah, enforcement that results in a fine is very rare, I think, in their area. It's hard to even find examples of it. So, if you are concerned about it, if someone out there is, don't be. It really is. No one's going to come on your property and issue you a ticket just because you don't have the right color temperature bulb or something. We're going to work with you. So, looks like that's about all the questions we have. But Amber, I don't know if you wanted to mention anything. I know you've been working a lot on kind of the dark skies in the South Brewster County, and with Black Gap. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that at all.
No, I don't really have anything in particular to say regarding South County. South County is doing a really excellent job. We've been working with South County since 2016 at least, when Big Bend Ranch got our dark sky designation. So everybody down here, granted it's a very, very small community, so and people like to be remote and dark, and so it was pretty easy sell down here. We are growing, so we're keeping an eye on it, but all in all, it's pretty good. One unrelated point that I wanted to make was just a little plug for TPWD. I recently looked at the numbers, and there are, I think, 15 dark sky places in the state of Texas. And now with the inclusion of Black Gap WMA, we now hold 6 of those properties. So I hadn't crunched that number before, so I just learned that yesterday. So 6 out of 15 for Texas and Texas Parks and Wildlife. So that's pretty fun, I think. So that's all. Just had to do a little brag.
That's excellent. Yeah, no, that's more than appropriate. Glad to hear it. All right. Well, if anyone has any questions for us later on, if you're watching this recorded, you can go to our website, McDonaldObservatory.org, and submit a question through there and get it to an expert who can help answer that. I also want to invite everybody out here to McDonald Observatory next year, April 29th and 30th. We will have what we call the Dark Sky Festival here at the observatory, and it'll be free admission during the day and very reduced tickets to events at night. Very low cost tickets for that. So again, mark your calendars, April 29th, 30th. Come on up to the observatory. We'll be celebrating the night sky, and by that point, hopefully the application to the IDA for the reserve will be in and completed. We hope to submit that in later this fall. I did see one question here for you, Amber, if you wanted to talk about the Dark Sky Ranger program.
Yes, thank you, Laura. So as part of Big Bend Ranch State Park's designation in 2016, we started a program called the Dark Sky Steward Program. It's a volunteer program. As part of our designation, our responsibility is to continue to monitor the quality of the night sky, both in and outside of the park. So the hard part was getting the easy part was getting the designation. Now we have to carry through with the commitment to continue to protect and preserve dark sky in our community. So as part of that, we enlist volunteers to help us come into the park, and now Black Gap WMA, and take photographs. Like, this really appeals to amateur photographers or even professional photographers. Come out and help us take images of the night sky, both as the eye sees it, but also really pretty visual examples of what it looks like out here in the darkness. They also can take our sky quality meter and go out and get readings for us. I've got one coming out next week to do some readings in Big Bend Ranch. So that helps us. It's a huge area, obviously, and there are very few of us. So it really helps to get volunteers it gives them an opportunity to get out into the parks, get out into this dark environment, with the added incentive of being able to help with this initiative. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, that program started with Big Bend Ranch. We're growing it to include Black Gap. So at Big Bend Ranch, if you want to camp in the park, we'll potentially give you up to 2 nights of free camping or whatever your situation is. It just kind of depends. So there's a little added incentive as well. So yeah, if you are interested in that, I should have put my information up on this last slide. Sorry, I didn't. I can put it in somewhere. If you can find me at the Barton Warnock Visitor Center at Big Bend Ranch, call me anytime. I can tell you more. If you go to just Google search TPWD volunteer opportunities, that will take you to the link to apply for that opportunity. So yeah, it's a pretty neat program. So thanks, Laura, for bringing that up.
All right. Well, all right. This is going to wrap up the program. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to Amber and Bill as well. I also want to thank all of the generous donors we've had to the Dark Skies Initiative. You can, if you're interested in donating, you can go to mcdonaldobservatory.org/darkskies. And I also want to say thanks to the Big Bend Conservation Alliance for their support and all the donors to them in support of the Dark Sky Reserve. Really appreciate the just huge outpouring of support that the Reserve and the Dark Sky Initiative has received so far. So again, thank you so much, everybody. And I'll put a link, Amber, in the description of the video here so people can click it. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.